Networking on cloud is one of the most important skill that you should be knowing or be good at, be it working as a cloud architect, cloud administrator, cloud engineer, or for that reason, anything that you're doing on cloud. And when it comes to Microsoft Azure cloud, you should be familiar with networking concepts like VNet, which is a virtual network, subnet, gateways. You have internet gateway or NAT gateway or various different type of gateways, including connectivity to on-premise, which is an express route, or you have VPN as a service. And within VPN, there are two different type of VPNs. You should also be configure or comfortable with things like a traffic manager or global traffic manager, front door, firewall, bastion services, content delivery, a DNS, and a lot more services. This is what we're going to cover in this video. Hi, this is Atul from team K21 Academy, where we help you in your journey to learn cloud and become expert in cloud. And if you stay till end, I'm going to give you a free class where we go a bit deeper and teach you what all things you should be learning and bringing an expert to tell you how to become an expert in Azure cloud. With that, let's first begin with the most important concept about Azure, which is a virtual network. So if assume this is a Microsoft Azure cloud, and inside that you create a virtual network, or it's called as VNet. If you're coming from an AWS background, it's same as VPC, which is virtual private cloud. Now VNet is nothing but a collection of IP addresses represented in a format CIDR, which is a classless inter-domain routing, which will give you an IP range of IP addresses. In this case, an example of 10.0.0.0/16, which is that many IP addresses range 2 to the power 16 in this case. Now, within that VNet, you have a broken down to smaller networks we call subnet. So you have subnet 1, subnet 2, and subnet 3. This is similar to what you used to have if you're coming from an on-premise background. You have a database tier, application tier, and a web tier, and you might have other things as well. So these are subnets. And within subnet, you create your machines. It could be a virtual machine, it could be database, it could be load balancers, and so on. These are represented by here. And then in order for you to connect, you connect to your on-premise, which is represented here in on-premise. You can connect using either VPN, which we'll see in a minute, two type of VPNs, and then you can also connect through express route, which is a dedicated pipe, which we'll talk about that in a minute later. Then you connect through something called as local gateways, and then you have a gateway, subnet gateway, which will be connecting to your on-premise. Now, on top of that, you can have a bastion host, which I'll talk about in a minute. But so this is in a high level on a VNet and a subnet that you see here. So if you look at the corresponding document to go a little bit deeper into these concepts, you have Azure networking, as I was talking about, is nothing but allows for you to work and connect to Microsoft Azure cloud and different applications, databases, machines running on that. And within this, I was talking about this diagram where you had VNet, which is virtual network. Now within virtual network, you can create multiple virtual networks, and in order for machines to talk to each other across different networks, you create or you peer them or you connect them. So the way to connect or the process of connecting these networks is called as VNet peering or peering of connect these that you see here. Uh, Now, if you look at this link, which I'm going to share below this video in a description section, I'll create a blog post where I'll refer all this entire this document here. If you click on this, it will point you to this blog, which talks about the VNet peering written by my team here. So the peering can be of two type. One is called as default VNet peering, which is the networks within the same region or geographical location. Or you can have a global VNet peering, which means where you have two VNets connecting across regions, two different regions. So in this case, here this network and this network or VNets are in different regions. In that case, it will be global VNet peering. Now there are other concepts which I'm not going because of the time. I wanted to keep it short and crisp to the point. You can read further about that peering here, and you can also try out by creating a free Azure account and practicing and peering those networks. So that's first is about VNet, subnet, and peering of networks. Then you have the load balancer. As the name suggests, load balancer is nothing but uh, it takes the request and forward that request to the backend applications, which could be maybe web servers, it could be application servers running on a different type of or different type of services that you can do. So that's your load balancer. And within load balancers, you have a public load balancer and a private load balancer. Public load balancer is which is load balancer exposed to the internet, whereas private load balancer is load balancer that's within the Azure network or accessible within the Azure network as well. So if you let me click on this and see where it takes us and what are the other things that you find here. So to look at this blog again on the load balancers, you can check out and go deeper into what are different type of load balancers, what are the load balancing rules, and also there is a step-by-step instructions to create a load balancer, a first load balancer on Microsoft Azure cloud. Then you have application gateway, which is a layer 7 application level load balancer. So request will come, but it will be on a layer 7 like your HTTP, HTTPS level load balancers, which you can also configure based on the URI. So for example, here you say /images forwarded to one server pool, backend pool, /videos on a different pool. So that's a application layer 7. Again, you have to go deeper into this. We'll share the link. Look, you can read at what is this Microsoft Azure application gateway, which is layer 7, as I said. Then you have a VPN gateway. As I said earlier, it's basically to establish connection between Microsoft Azure cloud and the on-premise network. If I'm going on this blog link about VPN overview of APN VPN gateway, you will see further down there are two type of VPN gateways. One is I'm talking about in Azure. You have point to site or site to site. Point to site is a specific laptop or a machine to a Microsoft Azure cloud, where site to site is an office in let's suppose you have office pointing to the Microsoft Azure cloud. So that's point to point or point to site, but you can read further this document link as well. Then Azure Express Route, similar to the VPN, you have Azure Express Route, but Azure Express Route is more on a dedicated pipe compared to the VPN. So VPN goes over the internet, but whereas Express Route, you have a dedicated pipe which is highly available. You can configure two primary and secondary connections or pipes. So if you have a requirement of a lot of data moving and you need a very fast pace or high speed or high bandwidth network connection, then you're going to use Express Route. Express Route is also going to be used if you're connecting, for example, Microsoft Azure with AWS Cloud. So on AWS Cloud corresponding service, you have a direct connect. On Microsoft Azure, you have Azure Express Route. So that's where you're going to use Express Route. Let me go and click on this link and see if there's anything useful on this link here. So I think the link talks about Express Route, the difference between the Microsoft Azure Express Route versus VPN gateway. And again, you will learn a lot by going and studying that further, this particular topic. Now, the next one is about Azure Traffic Manager. So this is basically getting a request, and based on the routes or based on the rules that you want to define, you send the traffic to the appropriate endpoints that or your application is running. So typical use cases is, let's suppose you have a website and you want a person coming from a US to point to the US servers, and person coming from the UK or Europe to Europe servers, and vice versa, or Asia, and so on. You can also configure based on, say, if the site latency or depending on the time it's taking, route request to different backends. So something similar to the load balancer, but a little bit more advanced things, which is a global or Azure Traffic Manager. If you want to read more about Traffic Manager, there are various configuration routing methods, and then also some of the important things that you can configure with Traffic Manager. Also, you can do some hands-on labs, or you can create and configure these. Again, you can see all these things, how to do it step by step. You can read further here. I'm going to point these in the document here. So that's Traffic Manager. Then you have the next topic, which is Azure Front Door. So the front door basically acts as a content delivery network, CDN, or implementation of CDN, content delivery network. So an entry point for any global web applications. So you have web application at the end, you bring all the, for high, like, basically quick resolution or quick response time, you have content delivery network point. So this is if you want to read more about Microsoft Azure front door. And if you're implementing CDN or web applications, it's worth putting for your APIs, web applications, and other backend applications, which is to the basically bringing everything, all the static data to be cached so it can be delivered very, very quickly. So that's my Azure um, front door. Then you have a Azure Firewall, which is a managed cloud-based security service, network security service to secure your applications, um, uh, like for services or for uh, things like distributed denial of attack, service attacks, or filtering the data, or network traffic inspection, all those things that you can do in a typical firewall. Implementation of that firewall on Microsoft Azure cloud as a managed firewall is Azure Firewall. Now remember, this is slightly different from you have other um, subnet level firewall, and you also have an IP level firewall, network security groups and application security groups. Those are different than this Azure firewall, but that's something you probably can read further on this, which I'm going to link on this document here that you see. So again, you can go to this blog post. We'll go deeper into these and understand a little bit deeper about firewall if you want to know more about firewall. Again, these are important from a security point of view as well as networking point of view for network engineers and how to build this managed firewall on Azure cloud. Then after Azure, you have a Bastion service. So think of it as a jump box. So typically you were having, you wanted to connect to another network. You create a jump box or an RDP remote desktop host, and then you go from others, or other servers. Now the loop or the issue with that jump box or the intermediary server was that it was running on a non-secure port. An implementation of that on a HTTPS protocol is a Azure Bastion service, which is a SSH access or a secure access to your machines running on in Microsoft Azure cloud. So that's a full-blown your jump box or a remote desktop service that provides Bastion service. Now you can create a Bastion service, and I think this is one of the common use cases. Or if you're implementing or managing Azure as an administrator, you'll be building these Azure Bastion host and giving it to your developers or administrator teams to build and to set up. So go and read a bit more about Bastion. How does the architecture look like? What are the pros and cons? What are the advantages of having a Bastion service over the remote desktop or the typical jump box that you create? So that's my Bastion service. Then you have a content delivery I've already mentioned. Then you have a DNS, which is a domain name service. So whatever you say, I'm going to K21Academy.com for example, or Google.com, the role, someone that converts that name into an IP address so that request can be routed, that's DNS. So Microsoft Azure provides its DNS service for managing all the domain names within Azure environment or external one as well, so that request or response can be returned back. Now, how to create or configure your DNS records and how to set it up, again, you can go further, read, and if you have to go deeper into that, Azure administration or DNS services as well. Then another important thing you should be knowing as a network engineer or as a architect or a security engineer should be the Microsoft Azure private links. So the private link, basically think of it as a dedicated private endpoint for your Azure services running on Microsoft Azure, like your databases or load balancers or SQL databases, storage accounts, and different services that are running privately or securely. And you can do a lot of limitation or like restrictions or configurations over the Microsoft Azure bandwidth or Microsoft's backbone or cloud network backbone. So this is on a private link. Now there are a lot more other things, and I wanted to keep this video under 10 minutes. So maybe further read out other things. I also wanted to point out to the 4 other videos that are highly recommend for you in this. One is about our YouTube videos that you'll be seeing or will be putting in this playlist on Azure Application Gateway and Azure Load Balancer. So this is a video that probably will be pointing to our YouTube channel. That it's worth looking at application gateway difference between those. Also, what is VNet Insider, which is if you're a complete beginner, I would highly recommend you to watch this VNet Insider and how this networking is done. Highly recommended video done by our experts. Also, if you're trying to configure and manage networks, you'll click on this link and understand that. We'll put that onto into the video. Next, final is about how to create a VNet and subnet step by step through video. So what you need to do is, after this, once you understand, um, go through and maybe recap one more time. But the best thing you're going to learn is by actually implementing. So if you don't have a free account, create a free account. If you don't know how to do that, leave a comment. I'll point to, there should be one of our videos which is talking about how to create a Azure account, free Azure account, and then come back and then create a virtual network and a subnet and see how that network works. And then finally, if you want to go deeper, if you want to get a help in getting a high paid job in Microsoft Azure cloud, I will recommend you to attend one of the free classes that I do, which probably is, if you go to K21Academy.com/Azure02, and that will talk about a session which I'm talking about, or I'm delivering, which is about helping you in how to get a high paying job in Azure cloud. Any doubts, any problems, any questions you have, then leave them under comment section. Yeah, probably me and my team will be there to help and guide you in your journey to networking. Now, again, as I said at the start, networking is one of the most important things that that you'll be doing, either as a cloud architect or cloud administrator or someone who's implementing cloud. So make sure you become good in networking. And if you need any help, um, don't forget to leave a comment and ask here. With that, this is Atul. I'll see you next week with another video, or let me know what topics or video that you want us to cover or do, maybe some hands-on lab on Microsoft Azure cloud, and would love, or any other cloud, would love to do that. For now, take care and bye for now.